Like I earlier said, President Uhuru and Raila Odinga today buried their differences in a move that caught Kenyans unawares. So what does this mean for the country? Joining me in studio now is Kakai Kissinger, who is an attorney and political analyst. Good evening and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
So reactions we're getting from the NASA core principals is that they learned of this closed door meeting on television. Sections of Jubilee also saying that they were not privy to these talks. What do you make of this? Was this strategic on the part of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga?
I think it's unfortunate that what we are seeing coming out in terms of from NASA, that they are not aware. I've seen Honorable Moses Wetangula saying that NASA was not aware of what's happening. But on the other hand, this is what my take will be, that this was a discussion between His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and then the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And these were the two principles that ended up into that election and the disputed election that actually took place. So there could be a possibility that first of all, one of the things is that there's a possibility that, of course, Raila Odinga is accepting that His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta is the President of the Republic of Kenya, and by doing that, he actually abides himself and goes to Harambee House to have these discussions. So one of the things that we have to understand clearly is that now we are seeing the fruits of the Constitution coming to pass, in the sense that the spirit of dialogue is actually enshrined in the Constitution. Every single aspect of that Constitution is as a result of dialogue. Every single chapter of that Constitution is a result of dialogue. And dialogue is a spirit that has been all over. And we've seen that since the election, we've seen that Kenyans have been pushing for dialogue. We have seen human rights organizations pushing for dialogue. We have seen diplomatic corps pushing for dialogue. Kenyans pushing for dialogue. So if His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta decided then that this is an opportune moment to have a dialogue discussion between his political rival, Raila Odinga, then why not? That's a very welcome idea.
And still on this, talking about dialogue, the NASA core principals pointed out today that they were pushing for dialogue, and yet they feel that they were left out of this dialogue. So where does this leave NASA's initial agenda? NASA is a coalition of 4 political parties. There's ODM, there's Wiper Democratic Movement, Amani National Congress, and Ford Kenya. Will NASA still hold even after today's meeting?
If you go by what has been happening for the last 2 weeks, there's been problems in NASA. And I think it's best when NASA discuss about these things. We've seen in the public that some of the coalitions within NASA have come out in the public and said that the coalition is not moving properly. So definitely there's a problem within NASA itself, and they rather deal with them in the best way they can do. But when you see that a common thing like this, they do not have to agree, then just simply means that NASA is no longer in existence, or if it's in existence, is actually on its last deathbed. So that's a problem that we are now seeing in terms of democracy. But at the same time, we have to understand that still there's rule of law in this country, and there's democracy still there, because we have leaders or MPs who have been appointed by NASA, who are sitting in parliament, and they should be able to still provide checks and balance. But what's critical for this process is that definitely we can see a situation whereby the coalition NASA is finding it very difficult to communicate or to agree or to cohese within themselves. Yes. And that's why we are seeing a discontent in whatever they are doing at the moment.
And just borrowing from what it is that you've just said about NASA, could this reorganize the politics of 2022? We know that last weekend in Mumias, and this is quote-unquote Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, alluded to the fact that Raila Odinga will support Deputy President William Ruto come 2022. Not a lot was read into that statement, but with today's political development, could today's move by these two veteran politicians reorganize the politics of 2022, and how?
The politics of 2022 is being reshaped from today, from what has just happened today. It's clear, therefore, that the next election, you will not see a situation whereby NASA again comes together as a political party. So basically one can say that this is the end of NASA in terms of coalition politics. But this is Kenya. Now you can see that now Right Honorable Raila Odinga moving closer to Jubilee Party, it just simply means that he wants to work with the party. And when you look at what he actually read out and what he said clearly, he wants to work with the party. So basically the politics are shaping up right now. In terms of what will happen in 2022, in politics we say a day is too long. So you cannot be able to tell how the coalition will shape up. But definitely these are right indicators that ODM probably will want to go it alone. as opposed to going under a coalition of NASA.
And final question on the visit of U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Do these talks have anything to do with this visit? The timing and the fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta and other government officials are expected to be in talks with the U.S. Secretary of State on talks that will focus on continued support for the democratic process, refugees and press freedom. So this visit, could that have in any way influenced this reconciliation?
Maybe not, and maybe yes. Why? It's because that Secretary of State is a very powerful position, and that's the epitome of international diplomacy. And he is coming in at a time when Kenya was going through what we are calling non-agreeing on political dialogue. Then he chooses a day to come, and he's coming tomorrow, I think. And before that, a coalition or a dialogue is pushed by the ruling party and, of course, the NASA. So that means, therefore, that probably there's a possibility that it influenced the decision that His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta has done, but also it could be that it did not influence, it's just a coincidence. But whatever happens, it's very critical to note that it's important that at least we have dialogue going on, and it's important to note that we now have an organization that is going to be formed within that dialogue to push for these agendas that are agreed that must be pushed for. But in terms of noticing this, then we realize that it's important that this dialogue takes place. It's important that the Secretary General, U.S. Secretary of State comes in when this dialogue process is in place.
And we thank you for your time. We've been talking to Kakai Kissinger, who is a political analyst and an attorney, as we look at political developments around the meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, where they buried their differences in a move that has caught Kenyans unawares. And we have your reactions right here. I'm just going to be reading them out. And here are your tweets. Let's take a look. The timing of Uhuru-Raila talks caught a lot of Kenyans off guard. I hope, however, that the quest for electoral reforms, police brutality, extrajudicial killings, and corruption will lead the way as the talks proceed. Kenyans want change. This is Yosef. Josiah, you're saying Uhuru-Raila talks. This is leadership, and I compliment Uhuru and Raila for swallowing their pride and putting Kenya first. And Steve Ogutu, you're saying the wisdom exuded by Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta is just exceptional. Their reconciliation has sent a strong message to the world that Kenyans have solutions for their problems. Those are some of your reactions, a lot more coming in on 22422, and we invite you to share with us what today's political development means for you as a Kenyan and indeed for the country. We're back with more on Citizen Weekend in just a bit. Stay with us.